What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of SMG Fishing. Today we're going to be doing a little bit different style of a video. We're going to be breaking down the two trolling motors that I bought and we're going to be rebuilding them with brand new parts.
That's clear. Alright, here we go.
So if you guys remember correctly, about 2 episodes ago I bought two different motors. I bought a 55-pound motor that was running and I bought a 34-pound motor that was a parts motor. He had scavenged some parts off of it to build a 55-pound motor back up. I went to Minn Kota's website and found their entire parts catalog. I've gone back as far as 17 years because I have a 2000 34-pound motor. I do have a 95, like a 34-pound motor, I believe, that I could not buy parts for. So just keep that in mind. You might have to go find parts on eBay or somebody that has new old stock. I went on there and I bought pretty much every single part I could possibly need. All the seals, all the washers, the O-rings, they're very, very cheap. Of course, I bought new brushes for it. I bought new switches for one of them. I had to buy new housings for the switch on one of them because it melted up. All right, so this trolling motor you're looking at right now is a 2000 Minn Kota Endura 34-pound transom mount electric motor. But since this one is already halfway taken apart, we're not gonna show you guys how to do this one. I'm gonna break down my 55-pound one. I'm gonna show you how to test the switch. I'm gonna show you how to test the armature. I'm gonna show you what to look for when replacing brushes and springs, and also what to replace when looking at O-rings and bushings and stuff like that. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna start by removing this housing to get to the switch. Okay, so there should be 6 screws. There may be less than this one because I've already taken it apart. There's 2 here, 2 here, and then 2 in the back. All right, once you have those 6 screws in the back loose, this just pops off, and then you just pull this out. You'll just pull that off, and then you got your switch. You can go ahead and unplug this. The switch itself is labeled so that it shows you where every single color goes back in. First thing you want to do is take these power wires that run from the back of the motor to the battery and pull them out through the top. All right, next thing you want to do is on the bottom of this right here, there's a little screw. You just want to remove that screw and pull it out. And there's also a nut on the back side of this, so make sure you don't lose that. All right, now that this top housing is loose, you can go ahead and straighten out all these wires and work that housing off. All right, so here I have an old and a new one. This is the new one. Obviously it looks clean, nothing melted, nothing warped, nothing bent, broken. That's a good one, brand new. $7, I think, brand new. This is one that was in the 55-pound when the switch burned up. This is why you should absolutely put a fuse on these. If you do overheat this, or if it does start to burn up, it'll blow the fuse and it won't melt down your switch. It's like Christmas. Are you kidding me? All right, Minn Kota, this is the second time you've done this to me. I bought 2 of these and 2 of these, but I didn't put 2 for the quantity because it says 2 pieces each on the description. Minn Kota, figure out what the... All right, so this is the easiest way I found to work on these lower end units for these trolling motors. If you don't clamp them down or have them stationary while you're taking them apart, the magnet and the armature kind of want to explode on you. All right, so to get this prop off, there's a little nut right here with a retaining washer in there. You just want to take a 1/2-inch socket and pull it off. And then you just want to walk your prop off. Ooh, look at that. So this is a good point too. Every once in a while you want to take your prop off and make sure you don't have a bunch of crud sitting in here. It looks like on my last trip I caught a bunch of line and everything, but this is really easy to clean off. When you're doing this in the water, be extremely careful because this pin likes to drop off and you'll drop it in the water. See, this is another reason why you should not just throw your fishing line in the water. This is another way you can ruin the seals and the bearings on your prop, is if you don't clean this fishing line out, it'll get in that bearing and in the seals and just tear them apart. So the next thing you want to do is get a 9/16 socket and take these through bolts out. Okay, now that we've got those through bolts out, you should be able to pop this cap off. All right, and the next part you want to do is pull out your armature. If you try to just pull this metal housing will come off too, and that's where the magnet is. So you want to hold the magnet and pull your armature out. You don't want to touch those wire housing or those copper wires either because they're very brittle and you don't want to break them. So handle this as little as possible. All right, then you can pop your magnet housing off. All right, so these are a T20 Torx bit. Make sure you use the right bit because these things do strip. Okay, now after you get those 2 taken out, you want to be really careful. There's springs in here and there's brushes in here. And once you take this brush plate out, it's connected to those wires that are going down the shaft. So pull it out gently. And then there's wires that are connected to the brush plate. These yellow wires that are connected to the brush plate go into the housing right here, and that's like siliconed in, and there's stuff up there that we're not gonna mess with. The only way to replace that is to get a new nose cone. All right, so here's the brushes that I'm replacing. Technically, they don't need to be replaced, but they do have a little bit of wear on them, and I'm gonna replace them anyway, just because I have them and they're cheap. So here's an old versus the new. You can tell they have a little bit of wear on them, not too much though. Okay, so unfortunately, when I went to go pull this black lead off, the tip of the connector came off. So I have to fix that now. That shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so these connectors for the brushes have a little bit of a trick to them. They're not terribly complicated, but you can see down in here, there's a little tab. You gotta bend that away. So you gotta get in there and push it back and then pull the connector out. All right, now there's a lot of carbon buildup and stuff in here, so we're gonna wipe this all down and make it look clean again. And then I have to fix that connection too. So I'm gonna get all that done and then we'll get back to you. All right, so when you're doing this, there's a little washer in here, a little cardboard washer. Make sure you don't crush it. And then these springs are fairly easy to replace. It pulls out of the back here and come up and around. And then when you pull it off, you kind of got to twist this piece out. But that goes in there, goes over the hole, and you just bend this back. That spring slides into place there. All right, so when you're putting these brushes back together, they have to sit like this. So you just slip it in there and make sure that little tab on that connector's bent back out, and you just push it back down in. And you'll hear it click, and then you won't be able to pull it back out. Do the same thing with the other one. So I marked these connectors when I pulled them out. The one with the X is my black wire. Make sure you do that when you pull it apart, just in case you forget where they go exactly. Slide that connection in, and then there's the yellow and red one that goes in on this side. And you want to make sure that they're snug and they're not going to go anywhere. And you want to take your T20 Torx bit and you want to just push down gently and get that thing lined up. Once you got them both in there all the way, you can go ahead and tighten them down. So here comes the tricky part. So you have to somehow hold these magnets up, and it'd probably be easier with two people. And you gotta slide this armature in there because those magnets have to rest on this piece right here. So once you have the armature in there, now you gotta get the housing back on. And before I forget, I have to replace this O-ring that goes around here. The next part is difficult because once you put this magnet in here, it's gonna wanna pull the armature out. You gotta slip it over. There you go. So trick is to just push in on the shaft. This shaft right here while you're sliding that magnet over, and keep pressure on it so that everything seats fairly and the armature doesn't come out of those brushes. And then on the inside here, there's two gaps. There's one over here and then there's one over here. Those are where your through bolts go through. So you want to line them up so they're level, because the through bolt goes in on either side. Alrighty, new O-rings installed. Slide that on. Line this up so it's even with those gaps inside. And slide it through. And this is the tricky part. You want to finger tighten these just to make sure you catch some threads. So screw them in a little bit and then try to pull the bolts out. When you can't pull them out, then you know you caught thread. If you have everything lined up, you'll get them right. That's the first time I've ever got those on the first try. It never happens. Alright, and then you just want to tighten these up. And when you tighten them up, make sure that they're still flat. You're going to pull tension on them, and you don't want to twist anything or pinch any O-rings or anything like that. Okay, now that we got that all buttoned up, we can go ahead and put the prop back on. So before you do put this prop back on, make sure your shaft spins freely. So you just want to slide that little pin back in there. And then the prop has this bar through it, so you just want to line that up with the little shaft that you threw on there. And you just want to reinstall that washer and the nut. And you'll tighten it up with your 1/2-inch socket. Okay, good deal. Now this lower unit's all put back together. Now we can work on the top. Putting the new switch in, putting the new housing back on, wiring everything up. It'll be good to go. All right, so now using the new lower housing for the upper switch cover, what we're gonna do is you're just gonna feed all these wires through. And so if you did want to use this transom mount trolling motor for the front of your motor, so you wanted the handle to be facing the opposite way so that you can actually control it from the front and have it go forward, It's just as simple as flipping this whole lower end housing around so that your handle's down here going forward. But that's not how we want it. We're gonna use this on the transom like it's meant to be used. This is the toughest part, I think, of the whole switch. Okay, so this switch needs to sit right here. The square block on the left side. The control is hooked up here. So this needs to go in here. That needs to sit in that cavity. And this needs to sit up here in this cavity. And then everything needs to be plugged in. Don't be difficult. Come on. All right, so the key to this is to get all these wires to sit flat. They need to be below this lip here, but also they can't cover any of these holes right here, and it can't go where this collar needs to sit into that groove, and also this groove needs to be set, or this collar needs to be sitting in this groove as well. Pointer needs to be sitting in the middle. And if I were better prepared, this would all be cleared off. And just be easy when you're screwing these in, they strip out really easily. Damn it! I always do this. I forgot something. Oh, this is terrible, and I gotta take the entire head back off and rewire everything back up. Oh, it's so annoying. This is why things always take me so long. I'm so scatterbrained when I do things. So I usually end up doing things 2 or 3 times.